All right, today we're diving into this wild social experiment where $500,000 is on the line. The whole thing takes place in a custom-built maximum security prison. And the goal? Well, it's pretty simple. Survive 100 days locked in a tiny cell with someone who is your polar opposite.
And that really is the $500,000 question, isn't it? The entire setup is just engineered for conflict. You take two guys from completely opposite sides of the law, you stick them in a box together, and you see what happens. Can a huge pile of cash make them work together, or are their identities just too different, destined to tear them apart?
So let's meet our guys, because you couldn't have cast two more perfect opposites. First up, we have Lenny. He's been a cop for 17 years. His entire career has been about order, rules, and locking people up. And then you've got Ian. He just did 3 years in federal prison for fraud and money laundering. But here's the real kicker. Ian got out of prison owing exactly $500,000. So for him, this isn't just a game. This is quite literally a chance to wipe his slate clean.
And, things get rocky right away. I mean, the very first night, they're already arguing about who gets the bottom bunk. Ian, being the younger guy, calls dibs. But Lenny, he's got all this prison knowledge, and he pulls the respect your elders card. It's such a small thing, right? But it totally set the stage for the power struggle that was about to unfold.
This quote from Lenny just says it all. For him, this whole experience is a massive psychological shock. Suddenly, he's the one being told when to wake up, what to do. He's on the other side of the bars. But for Ian, it's kind of funny. He was actually more at home. He even called this cell cozy and was happy it came with a pillar, something he didn't even get in real federal prison.
Now, this whole experiment wasn't just about sticking it out. No, it was about temptation. The guy running the show, this warden Jimmy, he starts throwing these offers at them. Things to make their life inside a little easier. But there's always a catch, right? Every comfort they accept gets deducted from that big final prize.
And the first big test comes on day 10. They get an offer. 1 hour a day in an outdoor rec yard. A chance to feel the sun, to move around, a little taste of freedom. But the catch is just brutal. They get separated to make their choice. And if one says yes and the other says no, only one gets to go outside, but the cost still comes out of their shared prize money. It's a total prisoner's dilemma. And would you look at that price tag? $50,000. That's a massive hit to their potential winnings, all for a little bit of sunshine and a basketball hoop. The real question is, can they trust each other to make the same call?
Turns out they could. They both said yes. In this quote, it really sums up the mindset they adopted pretty early on. They figured out that if they were actually going to make it the full 100 days without one of them cracking and quitting, they had to invest in their own sanity. Spending the money wasn't really losing it. It was what they had to do to even get to the finish line.
And they had to test that theory almost immediately. So after they get the rec yard, on day 20 they get another offer, a fully stocked kitchen. But they'd have to give up their yard time. And in this huge moment of trust, Ian tells Lenny, the cop, "You make the call for both of us." Lenny says no, they stick with the yard. You can see a real alliance starting to form here. But just when they're starting to build that bond, the experiment throws a huge wrench into everything. It was like it was designed to break them apart. And this is where we see a simple act of kindness completely spiral out of control and lead to the absolute toughest moment of the whole 100 days.
Okay, so on day 30, they're offered a library, and it's totally free. But there's a catch, of course. Only one of them gets to use it. It's a test specifically designed to create jealousy. And for Lenny, this was a huge deal. He tells Ian he's desperate for a Bible, that it's the only book he needs to survive the next 70 days. And then, in this totally shocking move, Ian gives the library to Lenny. He says he remembered how Lenny was willing to spend his cut of the 50 grand on the rec yard for him, so he had to return the favor. I mean, think about it. It was this massive gesture. The criminal giving the cop the one thing he needed to keep going. But then Ian's old habits kick in. He feels bad for Lenny, so he starts smuggling stuff out of the library for him. First, it's just a few pages. Then it's whole books. He means well, right? But on day 50, the warden comes in and reveals he knows everything. And the punishment is absolutely devastating. They were both supposed to get a family visit, but now only one of them can. The other goes straight to solitary confinement. So Ian, feeling guilty, tells Lenny to take the family visit. But being locked in solitary, forced to listen to Lenny's family laughing and celebrating just a few feet away, it completely broke him. When he got out, he just went off. He accuses Lenny of being a rat, of snitching on him. He's screaming, "You're Lenny the snitch." And Lenny is just stunned, saying they have cameras everywhere. They saw everything. But it didn't matter.
All that trust they had built, completely shattered. So at this point, they have officially hit rock bottom. The vibe in the cell is just toxic. Ian's so depressed he's talking about quitting, which would mean they both walk away with nothing. Their alliance is totally destroyed. And just then, the experiment introduces one last giant physical test that's either going to be the final nail in the coffin or the one thing that can force them back together.
Enter a 2,000-pound boulder. Yeah. Inside, there's a key that unlocks a $100,000 bonus. But to even try, they have to risk 50 grand of their own money. And they've only got 10 days to break it open, working just 1 hour a day. It's this massive gamble that they have absolutely no chance of winning unless they work together.
So at first, they're just banging on this thing, getting nowhere. Frustration is setting in. But then, there's a breakthrough. Ian uses his library access, the very thing that drove them apart, to find a book about rocks. And he learns about leverage, weak points, and suddenly they're talking again. They're strategizing. They're working as a team. And on the very last day, with literally minutes to spare, they crack it open and win the 100 grand.
And that victory just washes everything else away. All the anger, the betrayal, it's gone. It's replaced by this pure joy of winning together. That boulder didn't just give them 100 grand, it rebuilt their friendship from scratch, and this time it was stronger than ever. But you know the experiment wasn't going to let them off that easy. On day 99, with their bond seemingly unbreakable, they get hit with one final brutal challenge. This was the ultimate test, designed to see if this newfound friendship could survive the biggest temptation of all.
So here's the setup. For the final 24 hours, they're separated, back in solitary, and in each of their cells is a single red button. If either one of them pushes it, they instantly win the entire $480,000 prize. The other guy, after 100 days of hell, gets absolutely nothing.
And you can just imagine the internal battle going on. Lenny is sitting there thinking, can I really trust a criminal not to betray me? This money is for my kids' education. Meanwhile, Ian is staring at that button thinking, one push, I could fix everything. My debt is gone. He's even thinking, I had a way worse time in here. I deserve it more.
So for 24 agonizing hours, they each sit there alone with that button. There's a timer counting down, and neither one has any clue what the other is thinking or doing. I mean, the psychological pressure is just insane. Do you trust the bond you just spent 100 days building, or do you protect yourself from getting stabbed in the back by stabbing them first?
And then the timer hits 0. The curtains that divided the prison drop away, and standing there are both men. In spite of all that money, all the paranoia, all the temptation, neither one of them had pushed the button. They chose their friendship over the cash.
So in the end, a cop and a criminal walked out of that prison sharing the prize, but more importantly, with this incredible friendship that was forged in the fire. And it really makes you wonder, right? In a game that was built to make them enemies, they chose to be partners. What does that tell you about the real price of trust and whether any amount of money can truly break a bond like that?